thank you. Hello, everyone. Today we're going to be talking to you about one of our projects called the terraced reforestation. We like to call this one of the most visible green infrastructure projects in the country. There are about 150,000 cars that pass this site every day. But before we get into that, I want to give you a little bit of a background on the utility so you can get an idea of who you're talking to. So SD1 is a regional wastewater and stormwater utility in northern Kentucky. We have a service area of about 190 square miles. 190 square miles. We serve 3 counties and 30 cities. So this is a little bit of a timeline of the projects we're going to be talking about. I want to draw your attention to the first item. Back in 1906, the city of Covington built a sewer that was originally a creek. They basically piped a creek, and that creek became the largest combined sewer in northern Kentucky over 100 years. And just a couple other items in there that are important. SD1 was actually formed by state law 40 years later. Then 1972, Clean Water Act comes along. And then 1979, SD1 actually built the first treatment plant that was capable of primary and secondary treatment. That's chemical disinfection and biological treatment. Then in the mid-90s, all the cities in northern Kentucky consolidated their assets and handed them over to SD1. So SD1 could operate the system as a regional utility. And then 10 short years later, the feds, the EPA, and the state Kentucky Division of Water basically gave SD1 their intent to sue because we were not in compliance with the Clean Water Act. This is essentially a wet weather issue. When it rains in northern Kentucky, the sewers become overwhelmed with water, and they spill sewage in locations. So in 2007, SD1 actually entered into a consent decree, which is essentially a court order to get in compliance. And not long after that, 2011, we built this project, the terraced reforestation. So a little more background. We have about 1,600 miles of sanitary sewer, 123 pumping stations, 6 small treatment plants, 3 large regional treatment plants, about 440 miles of storm pipe, and 32,000 storm structures. We also are responsible for operating the flood control system in northern Kentucky. Our primary challenges are we have 96 combined sewer overflows along the Licking and Ohio River. Currently, those spill about 1.7 billion gallons of combined sewer overflow in an average year. We also have about 139 recurring SSO locations. These are sanitary sewer overflows. So these are separate pipes. These are, this is a suburban area where you have a separate storm pipe and a separate sanitary pipe. These systems also become overwhelmed with water, and they spill sewage in creeks, backyards, on the roads. Our consent decree requires us to completely eliminate those by a certain date. We also have a lot of issues with stormwater runoff, as everywhere else does. From development, our creeks are experiencing hydromodification, severe erosion, sedimentation in the water. And we kind of understand that sedimentation is the biggest pollutant in our waterways. So our approach to handling those issues is a very integrated approach, trying to treat both the stormwater issues and the overflow issues. What you're looking at here right now is a map of the service area. The green dots are the CSO locations on the Licking River and the Ohio River. The red dots are the SSO locations. So these are all the locations currently that we are required to, the red dots, we are required to eliminate them. And then the green dots, we're required to reduce the CSOs by 85%. And down at the bottom, you can see some pictures of overflows. These are very common occurrences. You see these pretty much every time it rains in northern Kentucky. So they're kind of gushing out the manholes. And as I said before, this can be in the street, this can be in someone's backyard, it can be in someone's basement. So this is a very serious issue that we're grappling with. So our strategy for dealing with these issues is a very integrated approach. Our consent decree allowed, really for the first time in the country, to take this adaptive approach to managing water in the watershed. So it's using traditional gray infrastructure, new green infrastructure strategies, and watershed controls. This watershed plan basically addresses water pollution and takes other sources of pollution in context with the overflows. And one of the really nice things about our watershed plan is we have these 5-year iterations where we're allowed to kind of examine what we've done, the capital improvements that we've had, that how effective have they been, how effective has the green infrastructure been, and there's some flexibility there so we can adapt as we learn how this approach works. So this is a terrace reforestation. Essentially what you're looking at, this is the Interstate 7175 in northern Kentucky. This is a little less than a mile away from the bridge into Ohio and Cincinnati. This is a 17-acre site on a hilltop that has apartment buildings right here. We have streets, and this area is about 20% impervious, so there are surfaces here that really accelerate the runoff and send it down the hillside along the interstate. So the locals here, we call this the cut in the hill, because when they built it back in the 60s, they basically, this is a very steep hill that they blasted out to build the interstate. You got a lot of exposed rock along the road right here, and this is all right away to the interstate. And what we did here is we built a system of terraces and berms and installed trees to capture and transpire the runoff coming off of that hill. And I'll let my colleague to get into more details on the way it actually operates. I just kind of want to give you a quick overview. So this is what it looked like prior to construction. You have a lot of grass and fescue in the interstate right away. This is what it looked like during construction. You actually see some of the trees are planted, and each tree has its own little berm that is capable of holding and retaining water. And then you see the textiles that were put down during construction. This is what it looks like post-construction. So the trees are staked in. You see some of the native grasses coming up. You got Cincinnati in the background right here. And then I just want to talk real quick about funding for the project. This was one project out of 5 that SD1 had funded with the stimulus back in 2009. We actually had the most stimulus-funded projects in Kentucky, and the project cost was $1.39 million, and $834,200 of that was funded with the stimulus. And you see the 17 cents a gallon of CSO reduction there. That's a really important metric for us. If you get over 50 cents a gallon, it's really it's better to pursue the gray infrastructure approach. We like to keep it under 50 cents a gallon to build the business case for the green infrastructure. So this right here is a glimpse of what a typical year of rainfall looks like coming off of that site. The red lines are what the response to a typical year of rain looks like before construction, and the blue lines are what a typical year of rain looks like after construction. So you look at those, you compare those, and you can kind of take a difference, and we end up seeing there's about a 5.1 million gallon reduction of CSO. This is another slide kind of showing actual specific storm events. These are design storms. We use these to build our assets. This is the 10-year 1-hour storm. This is essentially 2.05 inches of rain in 1 hour. It's a very intense storm. We like to be able to provide that level of service in our new storm pipes. Prior to construction, this is what the response would look like at the terrace reforestation. You would get about 15.3 million gallons a day at the peak flow coming off the site. But after construction, you got about 4.4 MGD, million gallons a day. And similarly, this is a design storm for our sanitary pipes, the 2-year 6-hour storm. That's 2.29 inches of rain in 6 hours. You can see the peak prior to construction is up here around 4.8 MGD. And then after construction, it's about 1.7 MGD. So you can see how the site is actually slowing water down, retaining it. It's not sending it to the sewer as fast. And that buys us some time to retain our flows in the pipe and not spill it at the CSO. So this is the Willow Run sewer that I mentioned at the beginning. This is a picture of them constructing it back in 1906. I just kind of want to leave you with this and think about how this very old infrastructure that's kind of coming towards the end of its life. This is a concrete pipe where there used to be a creek, and what we're trying to do with this green infrastructure is to control the water so it's not entering this system and going straight to the river and spilling. And this is kind of a final overview of the site. This is the Willow Run sewer shed, and this entire sewer shed actually spills about 500 million gallons of CSO in a typical year. And the terrace reforestation controls about 5.1 million gallons of that. So we see about a 1% CSO benefit from this site.